They
Yeah,
don't.
it's called off-label prescribing, which is what doctors do all the time, which is why we found that a heart medicine also gave you boners.
Didn't Big Pharma come up with off-label prescribing?
Yes.
Wasn't that their idea?
Holy fuck. Viagra proves ivermectin is effective. That just happened. That yes, that is the story of the discovery of Viagra. Yes. What does that have to do with anything? Like, god. Okay. Let's do a little Jimmy Dore for 2 seconds.
I just want to show you this, right? So now there's been a big push for censoring Joe Rogan, but again, the people who are lying aren't Joe Rogan. The people who are lying are the establishment news media. And I'm going to show you because remember they kept saying ivermectin is a horse paste. Well, when he got it's of course it's not. It's kind of a miracle drug. And they were even thinking it could cure cancer before COVID happened.
So, just so we're clear, because we seem to keep talking about this, it happens to be something that I do know a little bit about. I know I'm not a medical professional in any way, and I can't talk to you about, the difference between Eastern and Western medicine in treating COVID-19. But when it comes to ivermectin, I did have to do quite a bit of reading up on it because of the Glenn Greenwald thing and him saying that I was spreading lies and falsehoods about him and his promotion of ivermectin. It like they love saying like it is a miracle drug. It is as a dewormer. As a dewormer, yes, it's very effective at what it does in both animals and humans. It is a very good dewormer. That's like Nobel Prize winning for humans. Nobel Prize winner for humans. Nobel Prize winner for humans.
And then COVID happened, and then they had to demonize it right away because it's cheap. Nobody can make money off ivermectin. It's a generic. And so the company that...
No, pharmaceutical companies can make a lot of money off ivermectin. It just means that no one person, no one company has the copyright to it. So no one pharmaceutical company can be the sole maker of ivermectin. There can be generic ivermectin made by a different pharmaceutical company. It doesn't mean that it's still not Big Pharma making this drug and selling you this drug.
That invented it, Merck, they can't make money off it because now anybody can make it.
No, more people can make money off it. It's actually the exact opposite of what you're saying out loud. Like multiple different companies can make money off it. That's how that works.
So that's why everybody is now in Big Pharma shitting on ivermectin because they can't make money off it. And now they're trying to find drugs that they can manipulate a little bit, take ivermectin and make it a little different and then sell it. That's what they're
like, hey, don't get me wrong. As I'm no fan of Big Pharma. And I think that, you know, there shouldn't be a profit motive behind both the discovery and the development and mass production of life-saving drugs that some people need to take on a daily basis, or things like insulin, which people need to take on a daily basis. I'm totally on board with that. But you have a very skewed perspective if you think like when a copyright expires on a drug, pharmaceutical companies don't stop making drugs. It just means that other companies, competition, can also make that drug. So they don't have like a stranglehold on the ability to produce this one drug, and they can't determine what the price is going to be. That's, I guess, the closest that it's most generous that I could give you here.
trying. And so then they can charge $800 a pill for it. Right now, it's Jimmy, like 50 cents. Go ahead.
Oh, God, Kurt. Why does Jimmy Dore... Okay, first off, Kurt Metzger happens to be one of his like most frequent guests, or at least it keeps on popping up every time we do segments on Jimmy now. And why not bring on, I don't know, a doctor? Why not bring on a doctor to talk about this? Or a scientist, you know, the ones that you're always talking about. Like, bring on someone who's actually got like medical expertise, not a comedian. Not a comedian who was kicked off of Amy Schumer's show eventually for, you know, all those super spicy rape jokes that he was making on the side.
Ivermectin is also made by Big Pharma, so see, you're
dumb. No, it's not. It's actually, no, anybody can make it. That's the whole point, and they don't make money off it. So I'm just...
When you say anyone, do you think people are making bathtub ivermectin? Is there like an underground ivermectin scene that I'm unaware of? Are people just like building up stocks of ivermectin? They're just like, oh yeah, Big Pharma can't touch this. That's why they're trying to silence us. It's still pharmaceutical companies that mass produce it.
So that's what. So when he got Sanjay Gupta to go on his show,
Ivershine.
Sanjay Gupta had to admit they were lying. So who's lying? Joe Rogan? No. Who's lying? Alex Jones? No. Who's lying? CNN.
Avel says, as a chemist, ivermectin is harder to synthesize than hormones. Interesting.
And is lying. Of course they were.
Well, Sanjay just said they shouldn't have said that. If I was going to be a lawyer, like he just said they shouldn't have said that.
Which is the exact same thing as saying they lied.
You know what? Like, shame on CNN as well. CNN should not have come out and run with a story where they say that Joe Rogan was taking horse paste or telling his fans to take horse paste. Again, it's one of those things where, like, you had such an easy win here. You could have reported on this as it actually happened. Joe Rogan said that he took ivermectin for humans, something that a doctor cannot prescribe in the U.S. or shouldn't be prescribed, and it's not approved for treating COVID-19. It is approved for doctors to prescribe to treat people who have worms. So if a doctor is prescribing it for Joe Rogan to treat for COVID-19, but he isn't prescribing it to him for the treatment of worms, well, that's technically not what the doctor should be doing. That's the story that CNN could have run. And then in addition to, because so many Americans don't have access to healthcare, so many Americans' healthcare is either associated with their work or they just don't have it. A lot of them are very, very afraid, or they don't have access to these fancy celebrity doctors that Joe Rogan has who will just prescribe them anything they want, you know, the Nick Rivieras of the US. They were then turning to buying horse paste. And that did happen. People were buying horse paste, and there was like a record amount of calls into poison control for people getting ivermectin poisoning as a result of this. That's the true story. That's what CNN should have reported. Instead, they went with the silly headline that like meme people like me go with, and that's the big horse. He's sponsored by Big Horse. He's eating horse paste, all that kind of shit. Yeah, I was doing that as a meme because the whole thing was like silly and ridiculous. But obviously, if you're a journalist or like, you know, a news outlet, you should be reporting on the facts, and the facts that matter in this case, that like they're actually just quite sad.
No. And then Tom Elliott tweeted this out. This is fantastic. Watch this.
It blows my mind that Joe Rogan just yesterday admitted to taking...
I was like, is this a really old segment? No, this is February 3rd, 2022. They're still beating the dead horse.
Ivermectin.
You know why it blows her mind? Because she doesn't know anything about it. And she gets all her information about the news from the same place guys like this get their information about the news, from the establishment. That's why it blew her mind, because she didn't know she was being propagandized, nor does she know she's repeating propaganda. That's why it blew her mind. By the way, that's a very small explosion.
Professor Kasperi?
It blows my mind that Joe Rogan just yesterday admitted to taking ivermectin.
Ivermectin is something more often used to deworm horses.
CNN is saying I'm taking horse dewormer.
Rogan telling his 13 million Instagram followers that he was treated with several drugs, and he included ivermectin on the list, a drug used for livestock.
Rogan said the word ivermectin. Yes, that's the deworming medicine made to kill parasites in farm animals.
Why would they lie and say that's horse dewormer?
So things are clearly bad, but they're being made even worse by people who have refused to take the vaccine and instead are swallowing horse paste.
Wait a second.
Did she change it to
that he
paste?
got better because he ate cattle dewormer?
They must know that that's a lie.
You have individuals like...
Because people were doing that. People who didn't have access to doctors who would prescribe them ivermectin for humans were taking the ivermectin for animals in the form of horse paste. Because again, they're afraid their favorite podcasters saying, "Hey, by the way, bros, my boys, if you got a craving to get some cure on you, I took ivermectin, worked for me." It's like, I don't have access to the doctor who's going to prescribe me that. What do I have access to? I guess a farming supply store. That's what I have access to. That's why people were eating horse paste.
Joe Rogan, for example, who don't want to take an experimental vaccine but will take horse dewormer.
Well.
Yeah, that's fake news. CNN, shame on you. I can say that very easily. CNN, you fucked up. Again, it could have been an easy win for you. You just would have had to add that little caveat to the side of it, that he took it for humans, but people are taking it for horses because, again, they don't have access to that.
If it isn't old horseworm Rogan.
Ivermectin is often used to deworm livestock.
Ivermectin apparently given to deworm animals.
It's a lie on a news network, and it's a lie that's a lie that they're conscious of. It's not a mistake.
Yeah.
They're unfavorably framing it as veterinary medicine.
Joe Rogan, he came down with COVID. He says he's been taking the livestock dewormer ivermectin.
They lied and said I was taking
shame on you,
horse
CNN, for
dewormer.
that.
Ivermectin is a drug that is commonly used as a horse dewormer.
They keep saying I'm taking horse dewormer. I literally got it from a doctor.
You know, doctors say it. Doctors say you could take it for humans. Yeah, but not for coronavirus.
He may not have gotten it from.
Whoa, was that one false in all of them? I mean, you know, I was ready to laugh at TYT there too, but like.
Oh, what? So he just admitted it's a human medicine, but you're still a moron if you say it's a human medicine.
People know. They know. They know. Like, we've had Alex Jones screaming at us. Nobel Prize winning for humans. Nobel Prize winning for humans. We know that humans can take it. So can animals. It works as a dewormer for both.
Listen, what?
Wait, but he goes, doctors say you could take it, but not for COVID. His doctor said take it for COVID. What do you mean?
Okay. All right. I made a let's just say a research study little document for that debate with Glenn Greenwald that never ended up happening. But when it comes to ivermectin, we should mention a couple things. Dr. Pierre Corey, which is the same doctor that Glenn Greenwald was promoting on Fox News, and he's one of the founders of the FLCCC, which is known as the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. It's a group that is now infamous for advocating for alternative treatments for COVID-19 while not including vaccines in their list of preventative protocols, which caused one of the people to leave the foundation. Dr. Eric Osgood left the company because of that. The Journal of Intensive Care Medicine retracted a paper written by Corey and others because it misreported the mortality figures of people treated with COVID-19, falsely making it appear to be an effective treatment. Their findings presented in the National Institute of Health ruled that there was insufficient data to recommend either for or against the use of ivermectin without clinical trials. A 2021 review article by the FLCCC was rejected by Frontiers in Pharmacology because of a, quote, series of strong unsupported claims based on studies with insufficient statistical significance. They included the study from Egypt that was retracted after anomalies were found in its data and concerns were raised for plagiarism. One of the doctors in the FLCCC was sued for prescribing medicine to a hospital in Ohio where he didn't have admitting privileges. He told Joe Rogan ivermectin led to 100% protection in the participants in a study that was published in a journal that only had one issue. He also spread a conspiracy theory that it was decided that all information must go in one direction from the gods of science down, end quote. But that's not the way it works. Science happens on the ground. Sorry, I shouldn't have ended the quote there because the quote is still going. But a lot of these people, including, you see this? You see this right here? Ivermectin. It's a miracle drug for humans. A lot of them are referring to a meta-study at the beginning, and the meta-study was one of the first ones to show that maybe there is going to be a positive treatment for COVID-19, either in prevention or in treating people with severe symptoms by the use of ivermectin. That study has now changed. So they went back, this meta-study, and regraded the 24 studies that they had used based on how biased or otherwise flawed they were, and then issued a new report. The new report explains that there's a very strong correlation in the amount of bias and apparent benefits of ivermectin. In other words, the more biased the study, the greater the benefit the drug showed. When they excluded the biased studies, the benefits simply disappeared. In other words, the data from the high-quality studies show that ivermectin does not work in treating or preventing COVID-19. The lowest quality studies were conducted in Iran, Turkey, and Iraq, and the worst of them all were two potentially fraudulent studies out of Egypt and Lebanon. In the Egyptian study, it was revealed that 79 participants were duplicates. Some deaths were recorded on dates before the trial had even started, and instances of plagiarism were identified as text. A bare minimum of 5 ivermectin papers were either misconceived, inaccurate, or otherwise biased on the studies that did not exist as described. Large randomized trials showed that substantial improvements in the reduction in mortality rate in ivermectin group treated by 90% was actually a preprint and has since been withdrawn. That's the Egyptian study. Bigger studies out of Egypt and Lebanon have been retracted, and they were also crucial to the meta-analysis releasing that there was a positive outcome. Oxford Academic Clinical Infection Disease, June 2021, meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials finds ivermectin does not reduce all-cause mortality, LOS, viral clearance. Ivermectin did not reduce death from any cause, length, or stay in hospital, or people's ability to clear the virus. Poisoning calls for ivermectin went up 163% across the US, with 70% being about the consumption of the version intended for animals. The CDC report says ivermectin has not been proven as a way to prevent or treat COVID-19, and the FDA has still not approved its authorized use for COVID-19. And hey, one last thing. That doctor, Dr. Pierre Corey, who was on ivermectin treatment, who said that there was a 100% chance of protection that you would not get it, got COVID-19. The very same doctor, one of the founders of the FLCCC, he got COVID-19 while on ivermectin treatment. Like, at this point, ivermectin as an effective treatment for COVID-19 has been thoroughly debunked. And they're still going off about this. This video is from February 3rd, 2022.
Yeah, it's called off-label prescribing, which is what doctors do all the time. which is why we found that a heart medicine also gave you boners.
Didn't Big Pharma come up with off-label prescribing?
Yes.
Wasn't that their fucking idea?
Holy fuck. Viagra proves ivermectin is effective. That just happened. That yes, that is the story of the discovery of Viagra. Yes. What does that have to do with anything? Like, goddamn.
That's correct. Yes, our Big Pharma came up with the idea of off-label prescribing. In fact, they got in trouble for pushing it too hard.
Cool story, bro. Amazing pun. What the fuck does this have to do with ivermectin? Or telling your millions and millions of podcast listeners that your doctor prescribed you ivermectin and you think it helped you?
They had to pay a fine. So here we go. More to this.
The feed supply store, but it's the same compound.
When you have a horse deworming medication that's discouraged by the government, that actually...
You see, and one of the worst things about CNN in this whole ordeal is that, like, you made this happen. You gave them so much ammo, so much fodder. Like, you set this entire thing back by doing this, by misreporting this, by trying to have yourself a gas, while not also stating that, well, it's not actually factually correct to say that Joe Rogan was actually eating horse paste. That's something that we should have just left to the silly comedians on the internet. But instead, yes, you know.
Causes some people in this crazed environment we're in to actually want to try it. That's the upside down world we're in with figures like Joe Rogan.
Bro, do I have to sue CNN?
He also acknowledged taking a controversial treatment designed for animals.
Does it bother you that the news
shame on you, CNN.
You work
Easy.
for out and out lied?
Well,
just outright.
But see, this is the one-sidedness of this all. Because, like, yes, I know you want to come out and do the story that's almost exclusively about, hey, Joe Rogan right, CNN wrong, Joe Rogan good, CNN bad. Whereas, like, you're both wrong here. Like, it's still incredibly irresponsible of Joe Rogan to have done this. It's still, and continuing to do this, by the way. And then spreading that to other people, where Tim Pool's like, I got the kitchen sink. I got myself the kitchen sink. It was a treatment, you know, told to me by Joe Rogan that included monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, zinc. Like, of all the things I just listed, the monoclonal antibodies are probably the thing, which, again, is in the list of approved treatments that actually help people who are suffering from COVID-19, is probably the thing that helped Tim Pool the most. And then when you combine that with everything else, and we're going to lump ivermectin in there as well, well, that has absolutely no demonstrable value to people who have COVID-19.
Lied about me taking horse dewormer.
They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
I know why they did that. Because they're funded by Big Pharma, and ivermectin, they can't make any money off it at all. So that's
just
why
no money to be
Big
made.
Pharma funds those people, and then except for and then a couple of those people were from YouTube, and they're just morons who repeat establishment propaganda. And they have no idea. Like, it wouldn't dawn on you. Go like that moment that
like look at all these made by mom and pop operations. The Big Pharma wants to get their paws into this. They want their hands all over this one. You know, they're trying to taking it away from good old wholesome people making ivermectin in their bathtubs and selling it to other people to save their lives. Look at the good old mom and pop operation of Athens Life Science and Skavista registered trademark. These big pharmas are trying to take them down.
Jank from the Young Turks realizes, yeah, I know it's a human medicine, but it's not there to treat COVID. So you're not outraged that everybody ubiquitously 24/7 is saying it's not a human medicine? That doesn't blow your mind? Like, why are they all lying about it? That never enters his mind.
I'm outraged by both of you.
Lying about it, and you're not upset about that lie.
Shame on CNN and shame on you. Just shame all around. Fucking, I'm just gonna spread the shame here. This is fucking, yeah.
You're upset that doctors are prescribing a safe medicine off-label. What? That seems like someone had to pay you to be upset about that, or maybe you're just that stupid. And I'm going to think that the Young Turks are just that stupid. So
in all those clips, by the way, was there a clip of like the clip he showed of Jank was not Jank saying he took horse paste? Like, if the Young Turks were spreading that as well, yeah, then shame on them too. Like, you shouldn't have, unless you were memeing, unless you were making jokes that, like, you know, Joe Rogan's getting high on Big Horse, and Jimmy's working for Big Horse, and they're just drunk on the horse paste. Yeah, that's all silly. But, like, if you're actually doing a story on this, and if you're covering it, you should be transparent about what actually is happening.
Same media company that sold us chemical weapons and other lies in Syria, no surprise they echo the lies of ivermectin. Unoriginal script-reading fools. And that's by Eva Bartlett, who's been on the show and does great reporting from Syria. If someone says the sky is yellow, I think they're nuts. But when big tech tries to censor the guy for saying the sky is yellow, I start to think maybe he's onto something.
If the sky's yellow, like that fake debunking of this obvious thing, and then bring up all this other stuff that's in any court, they would go, objection, what the hell are you talking? What does this have to do?
The clip at TYT was just him saying that ivermectin is approved for COVID treatment. It was put alongside those clips of mainstream sources saying the horse pace as if they were equivalent. It's totally false propaganda by Dore. Yeah.
With anything, Your Honor. And they've been, especially with social media, building it up where you don't need to really have anything more than emotional proof for anything.
Yes.
So everything now is to make you like horses, dewormer. You're supposed to just get like that.
If you can watch that video and then trust anything you've heard from the establishment media about COVID or the vaccines or anything, then...
But that's wild. That's wild to be like, yeah, so CNN very obviously fucked up here, and CNN obviously was promoting a fake news story, so shame on CNN. But after knowing that, well, now that we've reported on this, if you can believe any other story that's coming out of the mainstream media or government officials, you're a sucker, you know? You've been cucked by Big Pharma. You know, and we're the uncucked. This is uncuck zone here.
You're a fucking on-purpose chump sucker.
Does Dore provide any evidence for ivermectin in this video? Well, we don't have a lot of time left. We'll see.
Because you've been lied to from the beginning of this. And as soon as I started to look into the COVID narrative coming from...
There's no more links for the rest of it. It's just them discussing freehand.
The government and the establishment media. As soon as I took a peek under the hood, I knew immediately we were being lied to on an amazing scale.
An amazing scale.
Not a little lie, on an amazing scale. And you've been lied to and propagandized to, and they can call me anti-vax all they want. It's a bullshit term, just like when they call Bernie sexist. It's somebody's telling the truth that they don't want to hear anymore, and so that's why they call you that. And that's what's happening to me.
You know a good indicator? Because what happens is, I've seen this a million times, like, I was telling my friend about the hospital thing, how they run it on purpose to not have
how hospitals are overcrowded by design.
So here's what he does. His face, he was like, I could see a look of it was troubling him.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, yeah, well, you got to be careful where you read information because I go, I'm looking at an article where they're bragging about it like it's great.
Yeah.
From like, I can't remember, it was Washington Post. And they're like, it helps the hospitals run more efficiently and focus on preventive care. I guess except for COVID, rather than, of course you're going to focus on if you can't get a hospital bed, but that's like, everybody does the same thing. They go,
if you want preventative care for COVID-19, get vaccinated, please.
It couldn't be that bad, but it's worse. It's actually worse every time.
It's worse than you think. The corruption that's happening to you surrounding COVID, Fauci, the government, is worse than you think. Why won't Pfizer release the data that they have on the vaccines for 75 years? Why are they fighting that? Why can't we all have a look at the data about the vaccines? Why are they doing that? No one gives a shit. Everybody else, shut up. Get rid of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's the problem?
Wait, but what are you talking about? mRNA vaccines have only been around for about 10 years. I mean, this one's new.
I don't think Joe Rogan is the problem. You've been told Joe Rogan's the problem by people who are getting billions of dollars from Big Pharma. And if you believe them, you're a fucking sucker and a chump, just like the people who believe Russiagate, just like the people who believe the gas attacks in Syria, just like all that shit.
Have you, Jimmy, had somebody be like, use polio vaccine as a thing?
Okay, polio vaccine. Nothing like these vaccines.
Wait,
nothing
Jimmy,
like it. By the way, you ever remember all those times, Kurt, you hear about those breakthrough polio infections?
Oh, so this is the thing he's talking about. I had to go through like 6 different links. It was like Breitbart, Washington Examiner, OWN, but I found a Reuters one. A federal judge in Texas on Thursday ordered the Food and Drug Administration to make public the data it relied on to license Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine, imposing a dramatically accelerated schedule that should result in the release of all information within about 8 months. That's roughly 75 years and 4 months faster than the FDA said it could take to complete a Freedom of Information Act request by a group of doctors and scientists seeking an estimate 450,000 pages of material about the vaccine. The court concluded that this FOIA request is of paramount public importance, wrote the U.S. District Judge Mark Pittman in Fort Worth, who was appointed in the bench by former President Donald Trump in 2019. The FDA didn't dispute it. It had an obligation to make the information public, but argued that its short-staffed the Freedom of Information Act office had the bandwidth to review and release 500 pages a month. Yeah, I mean, they should be releasing that a lot faster than 500 pages a month. But this is very different. These are two such a different thing than you just said out loud. Holy fuck. While Pittman recognized the unduly burdensome challenges that this request may present to the FDA, the 4-page order, he resoundingly rejected the agency's suggested schedule. Rather than producing 500 pages a month, the FDA's proposed timeline has ordered the agency to turn over 55,000 a month. That means all the Pfizer vaccine data should be public by the end of the summer rather than, say, the year 2097. Good. Even if the FDA might not see it this way, I think Pittman did the agency and the country a big favor by expediting. Like, how did you take this story and then say the sentence out loud that you just said? Like, why isn't Pfizer releasing the data of 75 years on the vaccine? These are two very separate things.
Wait, hold on. This is the thing is crazy. I don't want people to think I'm out there doing my own research or anything crazy.
No, we're not doing that.
I got this from an NPR article from 2020, back when it was still the Trump vaccine, so it probably isn't okay to rush a vaccine, because Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all about the polio. Now, I got the polio vaccine in the 80s when it was very reliable. When it first rolled out, it gave like 40. It's called the Cutter incident. The company that was making it, their process wasn't correct. It's not that the idea of the vaccine was bad. Their process was bad, so it wasn't killing the polio virus the way you're supposed to be a dead virus.
Mm-hmm.
So all these like 40,000 kids it was
polio.
The birth of vaccine hesitancy. By the time I got it in the 80s, that had been all cleared up, so it was fine for me. But it was rushed right out, and there turned out to be some problems with it, believe it or not. So the people that are, polio vaccine, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. It was very similar to now, as a matter of fact.
Wow, I didn't know any of that. So I'll have to look into that. Let's look into that. We'll do a segment. What's it called?
This is not the Cutter incident.
The Cutter
Cutler
incident.
It might be Cutler and
Cutler? Okay.
I think it's Cutter though. That's the pharmaceutical company that made it. This is information that I got from. It's in the Washington Post, NPR. It's all from 2020, before Biden was elected, and suddenly we don't have to worry about pharmaceutical companies rushing products.
I guess I'm going to have to go with Jimmy. I'm going to have to do a little research into whatever ramblings we just heard.
Anymore, because there couldn't possibly be a problem. So this is not like a thing that they debate, that it didn't happen. It's very well acknowledged by mainstream news sources. Here, I'll send it to you right now. You want it?
Let me see.
But by the way, that is a common tactic in conspiracy theory circles, in that you take one thing that's been discredited and then you try to extrapolate that to say, in the broader sense, then every single instance of this is going to be either like manipulated or duplicitous or something like that.
Is it that article that's from NPR?
Here.
The race for a polio vaccine different from the quest to prevent coronavirus?
Yes, and what they're saying is, the gist of the article is, we can't be rushing this vaccine.
The Cutter incident, how America's first polio vaccine led to a growing vaccine crisis. In April 1955, more than 200,000 children in 5 western and midwestern USA states received the polio vaccine, in which the process of inactivating the live virus proved to be defective. Within days, there were reports of paralysis, and within a month, the first mass vaccination program against polio had been abandoned. Subsequent investigations revealed that the vaccine, manufactured by the California-based family firm of Cutter Laboratories, had caused 40,000 cases of polio, leaving 200 children with varying degrees of paralysis and killing 10. That's fucking tragic and horrifying. Paul Offit, pediatrician and prominent advocate of vaccination, sets the Cutter incident in the context of the struggle of medical science against polio and other infectious diseases over the course of the 20th century. He reminds us that within a decade of Karl Landsteiner's identification of the polio virus in 1908, the epidemic in New York killed about 2,400 people, mostly children, and left thousands more with a lifelong disability. In the 1950s, summer outbreaks in the USA caused tens of thousands of cases, leaving hundreds paralyzed or dead. Second only to the atomic bomb, polio was the first thing that Americans feared the most. Offit provides a gripping account of how the March of Dimes inspired part of the President Roosevelt's personal experience of polio, raising funds for research and focused national attention on the disease. This is exactly what I just said. Like, if you can point towards an example in the past of something happening that, yes, anyone who sees this upon first glance would be like, yeah, that was a bad thing. You are then extrapolating it to the modern day, as in, like, this is an example of why all vaccines are bad, or this is an example of why we should never trust anyone who talks about vaccines, or just directly wants to do, like, vaccine discreditation. It's like, yeah, it's generalizing to the point of spreading medical misinformation.
Because
it was a tainted vaccine batch from a single manufacturer. The issue wasn't the vaccine itself, but the manufacturer. Yes, 100%. It's the same thing as if I said, like, you know, the Tuskegee experiments, which are horrifying, an example of racism in America, where they were experimenting on black Americans and intentionally doing horrifying things to them. If I was to say, well, because that happened, then we should now think that any kind of medical science that's ever recommended by a government body is also going to be corrupt by its very nature. Because in this one instance, this was a very horrifying and bad thing that was done. So that means, if we extrapolate it, all things are bad as a result. And there's much stricter controls on, yeah, okay, I was already saying that. There's much stricter controls on vaccines, vaccine processes now. Like, there was, like, the best argument you could make was that I feel that this whole process was rushed because the human trials went in the 3 waves, but they seem to go faster than normal. They fast-tracked the whole thing. That would be very different than what they're proposing. And even then, we still had human trials in which we did, yes, we started out trying a small sample size. We increased that sample size to a much larger sample size until you increase it to an incredibly large sample size. And then like after those trials are done, you then do an emergency approval of this vaccine for mass production.
Yeah.
Well, the polio experience differed from today's COVID-19 in one important respect. By the 50s, polio was a familiar...
Oh, he's already reading it off his phone. So this is all gross medical misinformation. This is a blend of conspiratorial beliefs mixed in with actual historical events, using those historical events to boogeyman vaccines as a whole, or to increase vaccine hesitancy from the entire ground up.
Your threat. It had been around. Okay, so we'll cover this. This is great.
Yeah, this is from 2020. This is an article from 2020. Now, I'm curious. I didn't have time to look and see if more, because I'm curious if, like, when I hear the polio thing, I'm like, that's weird. The people that are saying this must have.
Mysteriously, some children developed symptoms of polio after receiving the vaccine. It turned out that the vaccine made by Qatar Laboratories was responsible. The company's
Do you realize how irresponsible this is? By the way, you cannot use the claim that, you know, this is live. He's doing a live show. So, you know, in a live show, there's obviously going to be a bunch of stuff that, like, this is the edited video that he uploaded. Okay, so this is post-live show. But he stated before, he's like, well, that's a very interesting story you just proposed. I'm going to do some research onto it, and then we'll come back to it. We'll do a whole story on it. Instead, that's evolved into, you know what, I'm just going to start reading this off my phone, and it's going to sound all spoopy.
Manufacturing process did not fully kill the virus used to make their vaccine. As a result, hundreds of children who got the Qatar vaccine got polio, and some died. The debacle with the Qatar laboratory shattered public trust, and the government suspended all vaccinations while it was investigated.
What? The government suspended all vaccinations at the time as a safety procedure? What was the government doing? I mean, we shouldn't trust the government, right? We should have just let big government give us and let us take all those vaccines. They were stopping us. They were stopping us in that moment. What the fuck, big government?
Ultimately, the vaccines manufactured by other companies were declared safe, and people started getting vaccinated again. I got the polio vaccine in 65 or 66.
Read the last paragraph.
Oh, Shinsky.
You skip over to the last paragraph.
The story of the Salk vaccine is one of the great success stories of American medical research, and there is a lesson for the COVID-19 vaccine effort. We want a vaccine as quickly as possible, he says, but in the end, Qatar vaccine experience also tells you you've got to be cautious. You can't do it too quickly.
Isn't that unbelievable? Cut to, it's impossible. What are you, crazy? Or to be hesitant?
So that was, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know that. But they fixed it. And now the polio vaccine, I got the polio vaccine. I don't have polio.
I got the nice 80s, you know.
You got the 80s version?
PlayStation 5 version.
I think I got the first rollout. When did they have when did the polio?
I like that. But they fixed that. And I got the polio vaccine. Neither of us got polio. Guess that was good. Polio being that huge problem. But we don't really need to worry about it as much anymore. because of the vaccines. Anyways, don't trust vaccines. The government's out to get you. Remember that. That's the takeaway from all of this. Good to know.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we beseech thee to smite down our enemies. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble court jesters, here to amuse you. To our lords, Trevor R., we give thanks for this spit of land for us to eke out this meager existence. To our knights, Merid, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Ellie Leslie, Alex P., Brandon, Words Greenwood, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Val 9000, Jenna Tall, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multi Mondi, Trevor Yanis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our flag in a veil, and we salute you, our friends.